Hello everyone and welcome to Quadratic Equations. Today's topic is about solving a quadratic equation by factorization. So if we have done the chapter on factorization, there are a few methods that we can use, and one of the most common methods we can use is to remove a common factor between the two terms before we solve the particular equation by factorization. In this case, in example 1, you have x squared plus 12x. Note that we have x in the first term and also in the second term. Therefore, by default, x would be our common term, and we're going to remove this. So we're going to remove this x plus 12, and that would be 0. Okay, and we're going to solve it, and we're going to say x is the 0, or x would be minus 12. Okay, this is a very simple, straightforward example, but as we go further, using those examples, it would be a little bit more difficult. Alright? In example 2, you have x squared plus 25 equals to 10x. Now, in this particular example, what we must do is that we have to rearrange it, and we have to make sure that the equation would be in this quadratic form of ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, so in this case here, we have x squared. 10x would be on the right hand side. If we bring it over to the left hand side, it becomes minus 10x plus 25, and that would be equivalent to 0. Okay, now one of my favorite methods that I like to use would be the crisscross method when I want to try to solve factorization. But if we look at x squared minus 10x plus 25, we can think of it as a perfect square factorization. So what we can do in this case, or what I like to do, is I'll take the first term and I'll try to split it into x and x first. Okay, we'll take the last term. We will have to think of a number that will multiply by another number to give you 25, and in this case it would be 5 and 5. Okay, what we have to do in this case is we are going to cross and we're going to multiply it. Okay, so 5x will give you 5x, 5x here will give you 5x. Now, the trick is this: we have to make sure that these two terms that add up will give you the middle term with minus 10x. Okay, if we have plus 5x on the top and minus 5x at the bottom, it will cancel out. If we have plus 5x on the top and plus 5x at the bottom, it will be positive 10x. And the only way for us to have a minus 10x is to have a negative and a negative number as well. And all we need to do is to transfer this into x minus front in front. Okay, so eventually how we can solve it by factorization is we have x minus 5 times x minus 5 equivalent to 0. Okay, and in this case here, of course, if you are going to solve it using the null factor law, x is equivalent to 5. Okay, let's move on to the third example, example number 3. 7x squared equals to 11x plus 6. Again, this is the same form that we have seen in example 2, but looking at this, we can expect not to have a perfect square in this case, and we have to make sure that it's in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. So now let's try to rearrange this. It is best if we move the 11x and plus 6 to the left hand side rather than bringing the 7x squared to the right hand side, and that is because we always try to solve a quadratic equation where the term a here, or rather the coefficient a is a positive number. Okay, so 7x squared minus 11x minus 6 equals to 0. Right? And in this case, my favorite method will always be using the crisscross method. And let's try to break down the first term and also the last term. So we have 7x and also x, split it together, and we also have 6 at the last term. So we'll try to think of two numbers. So the only way that you can get 6 would be 2 and 3. But we have to make sure that our middle term is minus 11x. So it's a little bit of a trial and error that you have to use to see which number goes into which to get minus 11x. But in this case here, I can tell you straight off that this would be 3 and this would be 2. Okay, so we'll just crisscross. So 3 and x will give you 3x, 7x multiplied by 2 will give you 14x. Okay, so now 3, 14 and also minus 11. We'll have to think of what sign is suitable to place at 3x and 14x to get minus 11x. But looking at this, if it's a negative number, we will probably think that yes, if it's a negative number, it should be plus 3x, right, minus 14x, because plus 3 minus 14 will give you 11. And once we have done so, just transfer the sign to the front. Alright, and this will be positive and this will be minus. So eventually you will have 7x plus 3 multiplied by x minus equivalent to 0. Of course, this is again using the null factor. And all we need to do is 7x plus 3 is the 0. So therefore, 7x on the left hand side minus 3 on the right hand side, and x is equivalent to minus 3 over x. We can also do that for x minus 2 is equivalent to 0, and that would be x equals to 2. Alright, so therefore x would be minus 3 out of 7 or just 2. Okay, example 4 that we have here is a little bit difficult. Alright, but the method that we used in the crisscross method before that would be quite similar to this. Alright, so all we need to do here is just to cross multiply. So you have x multiplied by x plus 4 equals to 6 times 2 will give you 12. And we actually expand this, alright? X squared plus 4x equals to 12. And again, we'll always make sure that we put it into the ax squared plus bx plus c form. So in this case here, x squared plus 4x minus 12 is equivalent to 0. And again, my favorite method is by splitting up the first term, x and x. Alright, so let's try to think of a number that will give you 12. It will be either 4 times 3 or it can be 6 times 2. But then the determining point is actually the middle term. So we must make sure that we choose two numbers that will give us a middle term of 4x. So in this case here, let us try 6 and 2. Okay, crisscross. You have 6x and also 2x. Now, because you have a positive 4x in the middle term, we can say that positive 6x minus 2x will give you positive 4x. So, the positive, drag it over here, minus, drag it over here. This will be plus and a minus. So therefore, when you write the expression is x plus 6 times x minus 2 is equivalent to 0. Okay, and therefore x will be equivalent to minus 6 and also x is equivalent to 2. All would be the better option. Okay, so if you have any problems or any trouble understanding how to solve a quadratic equation by factorization, do contact me. Thank you very much.